Welcome to the Speed Learning series providing quick insights into must-know features of ServiceNow third-party risk management. This speed learning session focuses on external assessments as they are the primary vehicle for assessing third parties to uncover risks associated in doing business with them. In this session, we will review assessment configurations to understand how they are set up, external assessment triggers that are available out of the box to trigger them, and post-assessment trigger actions that a third-party risk manager or assessor can take on those assessments. The agenda for this session is a quick walkthrough of third-party risk management lifecycle and external assessments, assessment configurations, managing external assessments. There are multiple demos included in this session, and I will wrap up the session with resources for your review offline and recap key takeaways from the session. Okay, let's talk about the roles or personas in context of third-party risk management application. The personas that play a crucial role in conducting external assessments are third-party risk manager, assessor, reviewer, and administrator. Third-party contact is depicted in the slide here. However, our focus is more so on the internal third-party risk team to understand the external assessment process from their perspective. In this speed learning session, in the speed learning session titled Third Party Portal 101, what you need to know, we have already shared insights on how the third party contact can respond to external assessments. We recommend you review that session recording to get a good understanding of how external assessments are taken by the third party contact. Broadly speaking, third-party risk managers or administrators have more capabilities. They broadly oversee the life cycle of third-party and engagement risk assessments. They are responsible for coordinating, reviewing, and managing assessment records, as well as performing key setup activities, typically through no-code configurations. Third-party risk assessors are responsible for coordinating and reviewing third-party and engagement risk assessments. They play a key role in identifying and analyzing potential risks to help ensure informed decision making. Third-party risk reviewers support the third-party and engagement risk assessment process by contributing to the risk assessment evaluation. They assist in reviewing assessment responses and help ensure completeness and accuracy before the assessments move forward. While the business users typically kick off the due diligence request, putting several processes in motion, the third-party risk management process are primarily driven and managed by these user personas to fulfill their needs. Okay, let's review the third-party risk management lifecycle at a high level. A typical third-party risk management lifecycle kickstarts with onboarding process for a new or existing third-party or engagement, then gets into the determining of inherent risk of third party with hierarchy or tiering process and triggers relevant external assessments. Further, by sending third party risk assessment to your potential or third party or engagement contact to respond to, and then by reviewing third party responses to generate actionable findings, if any, by creating issues and preparing remediation tasks, if sharing it with both external and internal stakeholders. Progressing further by reporting risks, those are identified during this process with various stakeholders. And finally, getting into monitoring your third party for unexpected events by scheduling periodic assessments and by risk intelligence through various external risk intelligence providers. You can also retire a third party or engagement through offboarding due diligence process in case you decide not to work with them anymore, or in case the contract has ended. In this session, we will primarily focus on the assess portion of this lifecycle for driving external assessments with third parties, and we have several key topics lined up for you in this session. We will begin with reviewing the prerequisites to external assessments, understand what assessment configuration capabilities are available out of the box, review the life cycle of external assessments, understand how to trigger external assessments, and wrap up with post-assessment trigger actions that are available to third-party risk managers or assessors. Okay, a quick recap of prerequisites to external assessments. Questionnaire templates for external assessments must be set up. Document request templates for external assessments must be set up. A key point to note here is that the evaluation method for these questionnaire templates are third-party risk assessment. And depending on the type of the template, whether it is a questionnaire template, the classification is questionnaire template, and if it is a document request template, the classification of the document in the system is identified as document request template. The assessment templates are a grouping of the questionnaire templates and document request templates. Third party and engagement, as the next step, ensure third party and engagement primary contacts are set up in the third party contacts library. And contacts have validated access to third party portal, and notifications are enabled for the external assessments by updating the email properties under system mailboxes administration with have email sending enabled or email receiving enabled as checked. So these are the prerequisites to external assessments. Let's move on. All right. For our next topic, we'll begin with assessment configurations. Assessment configurations are prerequisites to external assessments. They are required for the they are required for setting up the questionnaire templates and document request templates, as we'll see just in a little bit. Moving on, there is a checklist that is available that you can refer to on the product docs, which we have captured over here for you to understand what it takes to set up assessments. Third-party risk managers or administrators perform a broad variety of responsibilities. After third-party risk management-based system is set up, they perform additional configurations to enable external risk assessments. From this checklist, we are going to be reviewing the green highlighted rows, which is what is covered in this session or is more relevant to this session in terms of conducting external assessments. The gray highlighted ones are going to be covered in separate speed learning sessions. So one of the first steps here is to set up third-party risk domains or areas. You can think of them as they provide the capability for assessments to be recognized as assessment types. For example, you might have a dedicated questionnaire for financial assessments or security assessments, and so on and so forth. So that is what the risk domains or areas enable with questionnaire templates. Fundamental to creating questionnaire templates and document request templates is understanding the concepts of assessment metric types, metric category, and questions. This is this is the core feature borrowed from the ServiceNow platform. It is sometimes referred to as classic assessments. Questions are created within a category, and categories are contained within assessment metric types. Question can also be set up in categories in a question bank so that they can be reused in different questionnaire templates. We'll see all of this in action just in a little bit. As we move forward, the questionnaire or document request templates are integral to third-party external risk assessments and internal as well, for that matter. Um, Assessment templates is a grouping of the questionnaire templates. It could be questionnaire or document request templates. Assessment templates acts as a tool that enables efficiency with external risk assessments. They act as containers, and these containers can be reused for triggering external assessments by various different mechanisms. Additionally to that, third-party risk managers and assessors have the capability to import questionnaires using Excel spreadsheet. They can download a template and then re-import it to create questionnaires quickly. And last but not the least, it is possible to schedule recurring assessments to be sent out to third-party contacts on a periodic basis. So this capability really saves the time and effort that is required to be conducting external assessments. A quick mention about internal questionnaires. The internal questionnaires, IRQs, have capabilities to automate attaching external questionnaires to external assessments. This, unlike tiering assessments, which do not provide this capability, it is possible with the IRQs. And hence, we recommend our customers to consider moving from tiering assessments to the IRQs to take advantage of this capability. So with that, let's move forward. The next topic over here is set up third-party risk domains or areas. Why is this important? Because this will allow the third-party risk managers to classify questionnaire templates, really group questionnaire templates into risk domains or areas such as financial security, etc. It enhances the manageability of the questionnaire templates. It enhances the experience of responding to the external assessments for the third-party contacts, and overall the process is more streamlined. Additionally to that, it enables granularity in risk scores. So it is possible to have a dissection of the risk scores by risk areas, and that's a huge advantage because now it is possible to know where the third party is lacking. Is it from a security perspective, from a privacy perspective, etc. Risk areas can be weighted to indicate that they have one risk area has more influence over the assessment process versus the other. And ultimately, this is how the risk scores roll up. So risk areas are pretty fundamental to the external assessment process. Okay, with that, let's take a quick look how this works out in the system. So navigating back to the application here. So what we see here is the third-party risk management application. As I scroll down and look up for scoring setup, this is a fundamental concept within the third-party risk scoring, and hence the module resides in the scoring setup. You can see there are several third-party risk area definitions that are available out of the box. This is how the questionnaire templates can be classified. Let's take a quick example here. So if one of these questionnaire templates is pulled up, let's say business resiliency, you would notice that this is tagged to the third-party risk area risk, resiliency risk. There are several different risk areas that can be chosen from, and basically it indicates that a particular questionnaire ties back to a particular risk area, and it kind of like helps drive the streamlining the process and helps drive the external assessments. So with that, we will move to the next topic. So over here, this is about like setting up of questionnaire templates and document request templates. What's important here to understand is that the questionnaire and document request templates are two different questionnaires, types of questionnaires that are sent to the third parties as external assessments. The broadly the classifications of questionnaires can be that of questionnaire template, document request template, which is what we are discussing over here. But there are other classifications possible, such as fourth party template and collection template, and we will understand them later in separate speed learning sessions. Um, and addition to that, just note that the internal questionnaires, they are classified as the either a tiering questionnaire template or an IRQ template. And this has already been covered in a speed learning session, which is dedicated to internal assessments. So with that, let's take a quick look at this in the system. So moving back over here, if we scroll to assessment setup, we will see questionnaire templates and document request templates. So notice that the questionnaire templates and document request templates um, are just one of these classifications. So if you group these questionnaires by classification, you would see that you would have questionnaire templates and document request template would be here in this module. That is the classification of the questionnaire. There are several different classifications, as I mentioned earlier, which are possible, like IRQ template, fourth party template, collection template, and SIG. So these are all nothing but different kinds of questionnaires, if you will, and they are used possibly in different process areas. For example, IRQ templates are used in internal assessments. Questionnaire templates and document request templates are used for external assessments. Um, it- and fourth party templates and collection templates are also used for external assessments, but then they are different kinds of assessments. So we will be focusing more from a general perspective, what these questionnaire templates are and how they are important in driving the external assessments. So with that, let's take a quick look at one of these records before we move on from here. Alrighty, so again, we did mention about metric categories. We talked about questions within these metric categories, which are nothing but your assessment metrics, right? And all of that is what we just discussed in one of the slides during the presentation. So we'll review that in a little bit in further more detail. Moving on, there are three ways to set up templates. In the context of external assessments, there are the options that we have available are using Next Experience native functionality, using the questionnaire template designer, and import using the Excel or a spreadsheet. There's a lot of verbiage here, but really what this slide intends to capture is, how would you go about setting up these templates in various options. Each of these options is reviewed in detail in the next few slides, so we will cover this. Similar process is available to configure the tiering or IRQ questionnaire templates. So not much difference, but you could follow this similar process to configure the internal questionnaire templates as well. Only note that only system administrators can perform the import using Excel. That is not available to third-party risk manager. So having said that, we will move on to exploring each of these options. All right, let's review option one, using Next Experience native functionality to set up the questionnaire template. Why is this important for us to know? The assessment configurations of the questionnaire and document request templates utilize the global tables, that is the assessment metric type, metric categories, and assessment metrics. Now, this is basically a platform level functionality. So third-party risk management is borrowing the platform level functionality for conducting external assessments and also internal assessments for that matter. This is based on Yokohama release version 20. ServiceNow third-party risk management will be migrating the migrating from the classic assessments to GRC Smart Assessment Engine while maintaining backwards compatibility to classic assessments. And we will include a resource in this presentation for you to refer to the GRC Smart Assessment Engine and become familiar with it. So let's take a quick look at this in the system. So as we navigate to the assessment setup over here and go to questionnaire templates, let's explore one of these questionnaire templates. Let us say business resiliency. Notice that the questionnaire itself is assessment metric type, and it contains a category, namely demo category. If you dig deeper into it, it consists of several metrics, which are nothing but your questions within this category. A few things to note. The metric category has a weightage and it can be protected by roles. I think similar is applicable to that of the metrics. It has weightage, and navigating back to the assessment metric type, let's take a quick look at the table here. This is the ASMT underscore metric underscore type. As you can see, this belongs to the global application and the package being assessment. So all the other tables are also going to belong to the global application and the package assessment, just that the tables will be separate tables. So with that, we have taken a quick look at the assessment metric types, metric categories, and metrics, and understood that these are the global tables, which the ServiceNow third-party risk management application as of Yokohama release version 20 is utilizing. So let's move on to the next one here. Let's talk about question bank. Question bank, as the name suggests, basically helps you maintain a library of categories and questions that can be reused when questionnaire templates are being built out. Why? Because question banks kind of like expedite the ability to create questionnaire templates and document request templates. So they're important. Categories and questions in the question bank can be added directly to the bank, and categories and questions in the question bank can be added to the questionnaire templates. And categories and questions in the question bank can be reused in multiple questionnaire templates. So with that, let's take a quick look at the question bank. So if you navigate to the administration section under question bank, out of the box, we have one for the evaluation method, vendor risk assessment, fourth party information category is created. Uh, and within that category, there are several assessment metrics that are created, which is nothing but a question. So theoretically, this category and the questions are reusable in multiple different questionnaire templates. So let's navigate to the questionnaire templates again and open up any one of these, let's say business. And let's say you want to add a new category from the bank, then you can click on this button, new category from bank, and add fourth party information category to this questionnaire. If you navigate to the category itself, you can add new question from the bank called as new metric from the bank in this case. So you can select these individual questions and then you can add the selected questions to add it to the metric category. So that's really the purpose. It's for this encourages reusability across multiple questionnaire templates and helps improve efficiency with the process of setting up the questionnaire templates. Moving on, let's talk about using questionnaire template designer. So questionnaire template designer, clearly it is a very user-friendly tool. It is a user-friendly way of creating questionnaires and working with them. So let's take a quick look. How do you launch this designer and how does this look and feel and what features are available with it? So let's navigate back to one of these questions. Also notice that before we launch this from within the questionnaire, new designer allows you to launch the designer and create a questionnaire from scratch. But then if I had an existing questionnaire that I wanted to edit, then I can click on edit in designer, and that basically begins editing the questionnaire in the designer. Now notice there are several different controls that are available. These are the different types of questions that can be created with the designer. Um, the questions that you see over here are coming from the question bank, and the categories as well are coming from the question bank. So it is possible to drag an entire category and drop it in the questionnaire and reuse it, and the same category continues to be available to other questionnaires as well. So that's really the purpose. It is possible to preview the questionnaire before saving. It is possible to load existing questionnaires or make a copy of the existing questionnaire and create a new one. So that's about the designer. Let's see, the option 3 is to set up the questionnaire templates using Excel. Of course, at times it may be better or more easier to collaborate with people using a spreadsheet to have a questionnaire template being created and then imported. It is really important to note that following the format guidelines when building the questionnaire is going to be trivial to ensuring a smooth import process once the questionnaire template is ready. So let's take a quick look at this. So navigating back to the application, if we go to the questionnaire templates over here, there's an option available called as import from Excel. So let's click on that. You can download a sample file. And as the sample file is downloaded, this is the format in which the questionnaire needs to be created. And once this is created, it is possible to re-import this. So you can just drop the file over here and begin the import process. So this is how the questionnaire templates can be created using the import from Excel feature. You can view format guidelines as you are working with this. There are a couple of options that are available in the system properties with regards to the questionnaire template. So let's take a quick look at that. If you navigate to the system property, notice this is an important property. So this is used in Excel cell text delimiter. This is used in Excel file cells for choice and multiple selection questions. So what is the delimiter for your multiple selection questions? Is it a new line? Is it a tab? So that's kind of like important for you to set it up in the property before you begin the import process. With that, let's navigate to the next topic over here. All right, we will review the assessment templates. So why set up the assessment templates and what is their significance? So assessment templates really are the tools that create the efficiency in driving external assessments. Third-party risk managers and administrators can define questionnaire templates and document request templates, and then group them into reusable assessment templates. So you do not always have to remember what questionnaires and document request templates do you need for assessing a third party. You can group them in assessment templates and just use the assessment templates to send these questionnaires and document requests as external assessments. So that's really the advantage of using the assessment templates. External assessments can use the assessment template to deliver questionnaires and document requests on the vendor portal for third-party or engagement assessments. So let's take a quick look at this as we navigate to assessment setup, external assessments. There are several which are available as part of the out-of-the-box demo data content. If you look at any one of these templates, you can see that the assessment template is nothing but a grouping of questionnaire templates and document request templates. So if I have an assessment template created for, let us say, IT vendor, I know that for assessing the IT vendors, this questionnaire, this assessment template is going to come handy, and is going to send the financial viability, cloud security, and reputational questionnaires as external assessments, while SOC 1 report is going to be requested as a document request template. You can set up within the assessment template a few other parameters, like how long the assessment results are going to be valid if this assessment template is used, what is the assessment duration, uh, and you can individually specify, what is the questionnaire duration and questionnaire review duration. So with this, we have reviewed the assessment templates. So let's move on and we'll continue with the presentation. Okay, now that we have reviewed assessment configurations, let us review how the external assessments can be triggered to the third parties. All right, what's the due diligence workflow anyways? Simply put, due diligence workflow delivers a streamlined, standardized, and a repeatable experience for managing the third-party relationship with the internal third-party risk team. Let us understand why this process is trivial to conducting assessments, whether it be internal or external, to understand the third-party risk posture. The request process enables business users to formally request due diligence for a new or existing engagement involving a third party by leveraging the Employee Center. The internal risk assessment process initiates the Inherent Risk Questionnaire, or IRQ, to identify the internal stakeholders after an engagement request is approved by the risk manager. This helps with the internal risk score, or tier, that scopes the external assessments. After the internal risk assessment process is complete, the third-party element collection optional process aids in the collection of third-party elements that must be investigated through a series of external assessments that is handled through a collection task. After the internal risk assessment and the optional third-party element collection processes are complete, due diligence process aids in external assessments by delivering questionnaires and document request templates to third-party contacts with an intent to collect information and evidence to determine the associated risk. Internal stakeholders are able to review the results of the external assessments. Once the engagement is approved, automatic continuous monitoring allows external reassessments of third parties across the risk domains. Note that rule-based scoring engines run at this time that automatically turns external assessments into summarized risk scores. Also note that if a contract will be prepared, the process moves to the optional contract risk process. In that event, the engagement will include a contract. The third-party contract negotiator prepares the contract. So all of this is captured in the due diligence workflow for third-party engagement that provides a consistent and repeatable framework for your engagements with third parties. Moving on. Okay. From the perspective of life cycle of an external assessment, let us review how all of this comes together within the due diligence process. So from an external assessment perspective, it is now clear that third-party element collection, which is an optional process, and the due diligence process both deliver external assessments to third-party contacts. In this session, though, our focus is entirely on external assessments as part of the due diligence process to collect information from third parties. But at this juncture, it is worth noting that external assessments can also be delivered to third parties outside of the due diligence workflow. This means two things. One, due diligence could initiate external assessments, but as a risk manager or assessor, you have options to send additional external assessments, example, on demand, scheduled, change in risk tiers of third party, or updates from risk intelligence obtained from external providers, all could trigger external assessments. Knowing that is important, and some of these options will be studied and covered in this session, while some of these options would be covered in separate sessions. The second thing that it means from being able to send external assessments outside of due diligence workflow is that due diligence itself is optional. However, we encourage our customers to take full advantage of the due diligence workflow to streamline, standardize, and make it a repeatable experience for the internal third party risk teams for managing the relationship with the third parties. So please utilize this workflow, but know that there are other options available as tools to trigger external assessments if you wanted to. Lastly, to wrap up this slide, know that external assessments themselves have a life cycle of their own, as this is a system of record that allows you to keep assessments in draft to identify the questionnaires you want to send to third party, um, submit the questionnaires to third party for assessments, receive the responses and analyze them, and raise follow-up questions, generate observations by creating issues and remediation tasks, and working with third-party contacts to resolving them, finalizing the assessment with third-party internal and external stakeholders, documenting risks based on the issues that are noted, and closing the assessments. Okay, all right. So as we get started over here, just a quick recap. There are multiple ways to trigger external assessments. Those include triggering external assessments, manually triggering external assessments, assessments being triggered as part of the IRQ or internal assessment process, triggering assessments on a recurring or a schedule based, um, having the assessments being triggered externally based on change in the tier of the third party, based on the risk intelligence scores, having event-driven assessments. We will cover this in a future session. And then having fourth to end party risk assessments being triggered based on the fourth party registration process. So the ones that are highlighted here are the focus of this presentation. And the other topics like the tier-based risk intelligence, event-driven or fourth to nth party risk assessments will be covered in separate speed learning sessions. All right, let's move on. Okay, let's review sending external assessments to third-party or engagement contacts manually. Broadly speaking, there are two methods of sending the assessments, or rather, really the questionnaire templates manually. One is through the due diligence workflow. Of course, more or less using the workspace. The other is through the non-due diligence workflow. In this case, you're predominantly using the next experience view. You send these questionnaires either to third-party contact or to the engagement contact. Basically, add the templates, questionnaire templates or document request templates, and these are then delivered to the third-party or engagement contacts via the portal. So option one manually adds templates to the due diligence third-party risk assessments. That is for third-party or engagement that have been automatically created as part of the due diligence process. So the due diligence process, the workflow automatically creates two external assessments, third party or engagement, and you can manually add questionnaire templates as a third party risk manager. Option two is to create third party risk assessments pretty much on demand for sending it to third party or engagement, for sending the questionnaire templates to third party or engagement contacts, and then add templates to it, the templates that you want to send. This method is adopted only when sending external assessments without due diligence process. Why is this important? Because this approach provides you the ability to send templates as part of third-party risk assessments from due diligence process or on demand, um, outside of the due diligence process as well. So let's take a quick look at this. So I'm logged in here as a third-party risk manager. From the workspace perspective, I could navigate to the due diligence management page, due diligence process. Let's take this example here. This one has, this is a due diligence request that has progressed to the due diligence state or the due diligence process state, and the system has automatically created two third-party risk assessments, one that applies to third party and the other that applies to engagement. These are your VRAs. You can open the VRA record, navigate to the questionnaires, and add the questionnaire. So you could browse through these questionnaires that were configured as part of the assessment configuration process, and you can select this and add it here. This would then be delivered to the third-party contact once submitted to third party. Likewise, the third-party risk manager can also navigate to the list page, and from within the list page can go to due diligence request, open assign to me, and or maybe all open. In this case, let's take the same due diligence request. Again, you pretty much land in the due diligence request and have the same steps to complete. Outside of that, it is possible for the third-party risk manager to navigate to the should be due diligence request over here. So again, my open request or all open request, follow the steps to open the due diligence request, browse through the related list and find the third-party risk assessments, open the VRA record, and then click on edit to associate the questionnaires. So this is another way of associating the questionnaires to the risk assessments. And last but not the least, can use external risk assessments to directly navigate to an assessment. So let's say as a third-party risk manager, you knew the risk assessment on top of your mind, or you had an external risk assessment created pretty much on demand, without necessarily tying back to the due diligence request, then you can navigate to all assessments or my open assessments. In this case, we'll search for a VRA record and then again add the questionnaires or document request from here. So that pretty much covers how to manually add the questionnaires. Just one quick um, correction over here. As you navigate to the third party, as you navigate to the due diligence request, point to be noted is When you open the VRA record, you associate the questionnaires and document request by navigating to the questionnaires and document request tab. So with that, let's move on to the next topic. Okay, now let us understand how to send the external assessments to third party or engagement contact which are automatically triggered based on the internal IRQ responses. So pretty much the due diligence workflow triggers and this process is only available to the IRQ process, which is part of the due diligence workflow. This isn't really available as part of the traditional tiering based assessments, which is another form of internal assessment. So automatically the responses, based on the responses of the IRQ questionnaire, it is possible to add an assessment to third party or engagement assessment record by basically by adding the desired questionnaire template or document request template to be delivered to third party contact or engagement contact. What we are going to understand here is how this works from a functionality perspective and how would you configure this for it to work from the questionnaire perspective, right? So these are the two things we're going to be exploring. Why is this important? Of course, this approach provides ability to send templates as part of the third-party risk assessments based on the IRQ response or tier or both, effectively automating identification of questionnaire templates. Um, so with that, let's navigate back to the system. I'm logged in as the third-party risk manager. Now navigating back to the workspace here, let us find a request which is in the IRQ process. Notice that this request is currently in the due diligence request is currently in the IRQ in review step. The inherent risk assessment for this is complete. And let's take a quick look at the inherent risk questionnaire. So for this questionnaire, which is an internal assessment, this is one of the questions: does this third-party store, process, or transmit payment card industry data? If this is answered as yes, I want as a third-party risk manager for a financial questionnaire to be attached to the external assessments. So and deliver to the third-party contact. So let's go ahead and close this. This assessment is already closed. The due diligence request is an IRQ in the review state. So let us now begin the start due diligence. And as we start the due diligence process, notice that two BRA records, one assigned to third party and the other to engagement. So effectively, two third-party risk assessment records have been automatically created. Let's navigate to the first one over here. Notice that a questionnaire was automatically added. The financial sample questionnaire was automatically added based on how the uh, IRQ assessment was answered. So is automatically added, and when this is submitted, it will be delivered via the portal to the third-party contact. So with that, let us understand how this is configured. We will review the questionnaire and see how this is set up. Okay, so navigating back to the inherent risk assessments tab, let's notice that the questionnaire is inherent risk questionnaire. So on the third-party risk application menu, we should look at tiering setup, tiering questionnaire templates, which are all your internal assessment templates, whether it be IRQ or tiering questionnaire template. Only the IRQs have this capability. So we pulled up the inherent risk questionnaire. Within that, let's dig into the metric category, nature of interaction with third party. And there should be a question here for the payment card industry. So for this question, notice there is a related list here called as questionnaires. A new entry has been created by clicking new. Let us review what that entry looks like. So navigating back here momentarily, let's open this record. This is called as a question to questionnaire mapping. If this particular question that we just reviewed is answered as yes, we want the financial sample questionnaire to be sent to third party. That is the automation that is set up by within the inherent risk assessment process, the IRQ questionnaire, that based on this response, a questionnaire be attached to the external assessment process. So with that, and now that we have understood how this configuration works, let's move on to the next topic. Okay, let's review. Let's review last but not the least of options to send external assessments to third party or engagement by the repeating assessment capability. Think of a repeating assessment capability as a scheduler or a job. It acts as a job and creates third-party risk assessments um, for third-party or engagement and adds questionnaires and document request templates to it. The scheduler parks the third-party risk assessment in draft status and can be submitted by a third-party risk manager or third-party risk assessor. So from a workflow or process perspective, you can create the repeating assessment job, and that job would create the third-party risk assessment and then allow you to add questionnaires and document request templates to it, uh, and automatically adds the questionnaires and document request templates based on the assessment template that you have selected in the job. Having said that, it is also possible to manage this from due diligence workflow, navigating to the engagement, and the repeating assessment job can be configured from within the workspace as well. Why is this important? Of course, this helps in repeatedly sending questionnaires to the third party or engagement contacts on a periodic basis that you can establish. For example, if you send the questionnaires today, you want to be able to repeat sending the same questionnaires every 6 months, you are able to configure that with repeating assessments job. So let's look at this in action. So I'm logged in here as a third-party risk manager. Let's search for repeating assessments in third-party risk management application. Under external risk assessments, you will find repeating assessments. Let's take a quick look at one of these, which is configured for AI consulting engagement. So this is a yearly product quality assessment. It applies to engagement. And the third party here is Workfaster. The engagement is AI consulting. Every 6 months, we want this assessment template of quality assessment, basically a set of questionnaires and document requests are configured in this assessment template. So we want this assessment template to be delivered to the Workfaster third-party engagement contact of AI engagement contact for engagement AI consulting every 12 months. So this is a yearly assessment. The assessment end date is the next assessment end date is in about 12 months, and assessment results are valid for about a year, 365 days, so that you can configure in terms of days. Now, let's take a quick example over here. We can set up something real quick and see how it works. Okay, so let's click new, and we're going to say, again, let's just go with quality assessment. Again, we'll select quality assessment here. And let's say this applies to engagement. It applies to the third party Workfaster. And let's say we can select blue chip assessment. And in this case, let's go ahead and submit this. So as we have submitted this, all active questionnaires and document requests have been added to this. The third-party risk assessment record has also been created. That's worth noting. And let's look at the assessment occurrence over here. Notice this is the third-party risk assessment record that has been created, and the questionnaires and document requests have been added to this. So when the third-party risk manager is ready to submit this to the third party, this would be delivered to the third-party contact on the portal for them to be able to respond to these questionnaires and document requests. Now let's take a look at this from the workspace. As you navigate to the workspace, let's find the due diligence request blue chip assessment. We'll go to the engagement record. So as we navigate to the engagement record, notice this is the repeating assessment that we just created, quality assessment for the for this engagement, and this has triggered an external assessment. So that's the third party risk assessment, and these questionnaires and document requests have been added. Navigating back, a point worth noting is that a separate third party risk assessment, you wouldn't necessarily find it from the due diligence request because it hasn't been created from the due diligence request. It has been created as part of the engagement as a repeating assessment, and hence you cannot necessarily find it here within the third-party risk assessments list. So if you navigate back to the engagement, you would find it within the repeating assessment. And this is also found under the assessments tab. So within the repeating assessment, you could navigate to the assessment occurrence, or you could just navigate to the assessments tab and you would find the quality risk assessment. So this is how the repeating assessment works. With that, let us move on to the next topic. Okay, as we wrap up some of our demos, let's do a quick recap. So we have covered so far the assessments can be triggered externally, manually by the third-party risk manager or assessor. The assessments can be triggered through the IRQ process based on the IRQ response to a particular question, and the assessments can be triggered on a recurring basis through a schedule or a job that triggers the assessments on a periodic basis. We have a few other methods of triggering external assessments, such as based on the tier of the third-party risk intelligence course, based on event-driven methods, and fourth to n-party risk assessments. Review these techniques to trigger the assessments in other speed learning sessions, and they will be covered separately. Moving on. So let's recap the typical workflow for third-party risk teams after external assessments are triggered. So after the external assessments are triggered, the following capabilities or features are available to third-party risk managers and assessors, and even the reviewers. The third-party response on external assessment has been received. In that situation, the third-party risk managers, assessors, or reviewers can review and edit the responses, can export the responses in Excel, and reopen closed, and third-party risk managers can reopen closed assessments if required. If third-party response on external assessment has not been received, then third-party risk managers and assessors can respond on behalf of third party. If third party if third party provides a response offline, updating an Excel document or shares a document to be uploaded, again that is an Excel template, then it is possible for third party managers and the administrators to respond to the assessment offline by importing the Excel template. So these are a few options where third-party risk managers or basically the internal third-party risk teams can collaborate with third-party contacts during the assessment process. Please note, some of these functions are also available to the external users, such as exporting responses in Excel and responding to assessment offline for the importing function. All right, so fundamentally, for us to be exploring the next steps post-assessment trigger actions, let us recap how the assessments are accessed from the vendor management workspace or through the next experience view. So from the vendor management workspace, and the assessments can be accessed through the due diligence management page or through the list page. Um, or from the next experience view, they are available via a few modules. We'll take a quick look at that. The primary need for us to understand this is how to access the external assessments. It is the first step in managing the assessment lifecycle. So let's hop back into the system here. So through the due diligence management page, by clicking on the due diligence process tile, due diligence request can be accessed. Other than that, the list view allows the third-party risk managers or third-party risk managers, assessors, and reviewers also to access the due diligence request. So in this case, let's say we can access the due diligence request as third-party risk manager from the all open page, all open list. Now, from the next experience view perspective, again, there are a few modules that are available under due diligence request, my open request, or all open request. The due diligence request can be accessed. Um, if the assessments were to be accessed directly, they could be accessed from the external assessments modules, all assessments. This would be the method of accessing the assessments directly, or if the third-party risk assessments were not initiated from the due diligence process. So having said that, this is how we access the assessments. Moving forward, the first post-trigger action that we will cover is review and edit responses. Um, so why is this important? It allows for reviewing the third-party risk responses to questionnaires when assessing the risk of partnering with a third party. Basically allows for editing of the third-party risk responses on behalf of the third party or engagement contact. Uh, Basically, this allows for collaboration between the internal third-party risk teams and the external contacts, and it also maintains an activity trail of the changes. How it really works is by accessing the assessment from from the due diligence request, either by navigating to the workspace or to the next experience view. And in situations where the external assessment is not tied to a due diligence request, you access it from the external assessment. So let's take a quick look at this. So we'll start with the workspace. I'm logged in as a third-party risk manager. Let me open one of these requests that was recently responded to by the third-party contact. Um, this was one of the responses that was received. As you can see, it is received, and also the assessment has been completed. Now, in this case, this is the questionnaire that has been received. So the only capability right now that we see is to export responses. We'll come back to it in a little bit. But let's navigate back and find an assessment which is received but not yet completed. So let's take the one that is in progress. So in this case, the third-party risk managers or assessors can edit the response on behalf of the third-party contact. Once they complete editing the response, they do the editing of the response by clicking on edit. And once they complete editing of the response, they can save, and they can also submit the response. Okay, now with that, that's basically the review and edit capability for the external assessments. Responding to us, the next assessment trigger action that we will cover is responding to assessments on behalf of third party. So in this case, why is this important? Because this allows for editing and submitting the third party risk assessment responses uh, to questionnaires on behalf of third party or engagement contact. Primarily, this would be in situations where the third party does not have an access to the portal, or they require some assistance in terms of completing the questionnaires, and so on and so forth. So how is this accomplished? This is accomplished again by navigating to the third-party risk assessment record from the due diligence workflow, or directly from the external assessments module, where the third-party risk assessment is not necessarily tied to the due diligence request. So we'll review how this works. Navigating back over here, let's go back to the workspace and find, again, from the due diligence request, navigate it to the third-party risk assessments. Let's navigate to the one that has been submitted to the third party. Now, in this case, cloud security was in progress. So the third-party risk manager kind of like just provided some assistance in editing and submitting the assessment. But in case of business resiliency, this hasn't even begun yet. So the assistance that possibly the third-party risk manager could provide, in this case, is to respond on behalf of third party. Let's say there is collaboration that is possible outside of the tool, over email or maybe some other means. Maybe it is just a Zoom meeting, and the third-party risk manager is basically responding to this questionnaire on behalf of the third-party contact. So basically just answering this questionnaire, and once done answering the questionnaire, is ready to save this and submit it, as we just saw with the edit functionality. So this basically demonstrates the capability that is available to third-party risk manager to submit an entire assessment on behalf of the third-party contact. Whereas what we saw previously was to be able to edit an in-flight assessment that has been actively worked upon by the third-party contact. So that's really the difference, but the window to both of these features and functionality is one and the same. Now, let's look at how this would be accomplished within the native view. So let's say if you were to find the due diligence request within the next experience view, and this is the request, how the experience would differ is, for this particular third-party risk assessment, it was the business resiliency. You would see view responses as a link that would be available. Clicking on that would bring the third-party risk manager to the same window again, and it allows this assessment to be filled and submitted on behalf of third party. Same thing would be true for editing. In this case, this was in flight. So the third-party risk manager is able to edit this function, this assessment, and then submit it on behalf of the third party. Now, with that, let's move on to the next topic. Okay, the next topic that we will be covering is the post-assessment trigger that allows responding to the assessment offline. Now, in this particular capability, the third-party risk manager has the third-party risk manager and assessors have the capability of importing, um, the questionnaire that has been populated by the third-party contact, uh, and updating the response. This is offline because the third-party contact is willing to answer the questionnaire, but for some reason is only able to provide the responses in an Excel template. This template is available out of the box. It can be downloaded and shared by the third-party risk manager with the third-party contact, and then the template, once filled, can be imported back by the third-party risk manager or assessor. The functionality to import the responses after filling the questionnaire template offline is also available to the third-party contact. So they can also, from within the third-party portal, perform the same exact steps that I'm about to show you for the third-party risk manager. So this is important because it allows greater collaboration and it increases efficiency when it is easier to populate a template and upload it in the portal. For example, in order to complete a questionnaire response, it is required for the third-party contact to collaborate with a lot of people, and it might not be ideal for them to provide access to so many different people to update the questionnaire. So let's look at this in action. So we'll go to the workspace, vendor management workspace, and again to the due diligence request here. Let's open the one that has been submitted to third party for business resiliency. And in this case, what we are going to do is import the questionnaire that has been received from the third party. So in this case, let's say this is the one. This is for business resiliency. This is the updated template that has been received. So we can import that. And as we complete the import process, we see that the questionnaire has been updated with the responses. So some of these questions were answered as yes, and a few others were answered as no. And once this is imported, the assessment can be submitted on behalf of the third party. The same exact capability is available to third party contact. This is how the template looks like out of the box. Um, so this is the template. It has the instructions on how this has to be responded, how the questionnaire has to be filled in. And for every single question, they are able to capture the answers, save the template, and hand it over to the internal third-party risk team. They can import it, or the third-party contact can import it themselves. So having covered this, the same exact capability is also available from within the next experience view. So the way we saw the next experience was accessed from the due diligence request. That is the same view that can be accessed for uploading the questionnaire. So let's go to the due diligence request over here. Let's open the third-party risk assessment, and this is the business resiliency, and the import capabilities available here as well. So both the approaches are valid. For that, let's move on to the next topic. The next topic here is about the export responses. Why is this important? Because it allows exporting the third-party risk assessment responses when assessing the risks of partnering with the third party. It allows for, again, offline review and collaboration among different people, both internally and externally. So let's look at this, how this is achieved. It's very simple. Again, this capability or feature is available in both Next Experience view and from the workspace. So let's take a quick look at this from the Next Experience view. As you can see, this is the questionnaire that is populated. And to export the responses, we just click Export Responses, and the Excel is downloaded with the responses. The same feature or capability is available to that of the third-party contact as well. Now let's take a quick look at the next feature here, which is reopening a closed assessment. Now, why this is important is because it allows for reopening the third-party risk assessment to questionnaires when assessing the risk of partnering with a third party. By reopening, it allows for sending more questionnaires and document requests to the third party, or even restarting the current questionnaire from scratch. Um, how it really works is basically the third-party risk managers or assessors have the ability to navigate to the third-party risk assessment, which is closed, and they are able to reopen back up the assessment by clicking the reopen button. So let's take a quick look at that. Let's look at this from the workspace view. Navigating back to the due diligence request, this one is closed. This third-party risk assessment is closed. So let's take a quick look here. As a third-party risk manager, I'm able to reopen this assessment, and that basically pushes this assessment back. It allows the third-party risk manager to add a few more questionnaires and send that to the third party for completion. So with that, we have now covered the demo for the post-assessment trigger actions. Let's move on to the next topic. Okay, the next topic here is how to leverage issues and remediation workflows to manage risks from the said third party. This topic will be covered in detail in a separate speed learning session. We are just going to review this at a very high level and wrap up the session. So when reviewing the third-party responses, the third-party risk managers and SSLs can generate actionable findings by creating issues and preparing remediation tasks, um, and sharing it both externally and internally in order to remediate the issues. This is what we reviewed with the third-party risk lifecycle. Let's move on. What is possible with the third-party risk management application, again, at a very high level, is the ability to manage risks with issue and remediation workflow. This is optional. However, it is highly likely that there will be some issues that will be identified as part of the process of assessing third parties, and those will need to be remediated or need to be accepted as risk. So issues can be created manually or automatically before the assessment is closed during the generate observation state of the third-party risk external assessment. Automatic issues can be created based on some rules that can be configured at the question level, wherein based on an incorrect response, issue may be generated. Issues when generated may also fail a control that is being tracked against a third party, which eventually would result in non-compliance of a particular control and would be tracked until the control becomes compliant by remediating the issue. Issues are created to document audit observations, remediations, or to accept any problems. Issues can be assigned directly to third-party contacts or they may also be kept private and not assigned to third-party contact. There is a checkbox that is available on the issue form called as visible in portal. If that is unchecked, the issue is kept private and not shared with the third party. Um, the third-party assessors or managers assign third parties as needed and communicate using comment streams to achieve the closure of non-compliance. So there is a back and forth communication that is possible by using the activity comment streams that the third-party risk managers and assessors can use. Remediating an issue means fixing the underlying control failure or addressing the risk that is exposed. Accepting an issue means you are, as a third-party risk manager or assessor, creating an exception for a known control failure or risk. Controls that are accepted remain in non-compliant state until the control is reassessed. So this is the high level of the issue and remediation workflow. It will be covered in detail in a separate speed learning session. Let's move on. As we wrap up, these are some of the resources that we would like to leave you with. All of these resources will be shared with you on the community page. Some of these resources are for helping you with assessment configuration, while others are for managing external assessments. and some of these help you with third-party portal setup. It is important to note that as of this recording, which is for the Yokohama release version 20, classic risk assessments is used for external assessments, but in the future, it would be the smart assessment engine that would be available for driving the internal and external assessments. And we will maintain backwards compatibility for you to choose how you want to deliver your assessments. With that, here is some of the out of the box content. The starter, some of these are like starter questionnaires that are available to you. Um, I think there is close to around like 25 to 30 questionnaires approximately, as I can see on this list, that are available to you for using for external assessments. You can even copy these questionnaires and customize to make your own questionnaires that you want to use for the assessments. With that, from the perspective of key takeaways, uh, to configure, trigger, and review external assessments, let us recap them. In terms of assessment configuration, you can scale up the third-party risk program by with the assessment configurations. Risk areas and domains allow grouping of assessments and to drive granular and actionable risk scores. You can drive efficiencies with assessment templates because the assessment templates group for you the questionnaires and document request templates. Question banks help you streamline the questionnaires and help you to speedily develop the questionnaire templates and document request templates. You can also add questions to the question bank. You can leverage the out-of-the-box questionnaire templates when possible, or customize them to make them your own. From the perspective of triggering external assessments, what we have reviewed today is how to manually or on-demand trigger external assessments, how to automatically trigger external assessments from IRQ responses, schedule the external assessments to recur on a periodic basis, or trigger them based on a tier, which is part of how to automatically trigger the IRQ responses. There are other methods of triggering based on the tier, which is already covered in a separate speed learning session dedicated to internal assessments. Last but not the least, how to undertake, what we have reviewed in terms of easily undertaking post-assessment trigger actions. We have reviewed how the post-assessment trigger actions assist third parties to internal third-party risk teams to respond in terms of reviewing and editing the responses, importing responses from Excel templates, exporting responses in Excel for ease in review. We have at a very high level touched upon the issue and remediation workflow and managed the overall and understood the overall third-party risk assessment lifecycle. There are several more resources available on the product documentation and now we highly encourage you to review them. If you run into issues, please have your ServiceNow administrator log in a support ticket for assistance. With that, thank you for watching. Hope this speed learning session has provided quick insights into external assessments. See you on the next one. Thank you.